Continuing from the last therapy that we spoke about, today you said you wanted to talk about trauma-informed care.
Yeah, it seems to be a word that's increasingly used.
Right.
Trauma-informed practice, trauma-informed care and stuff like that. It seems to be a word that people are hooking onto, and it seems to be all about that.
Right.
Really.
Okay. What's your take on trauma-informed care?
Part of me, I think two things. Part of me thinks, oh, that's really good that people are thinking about people that experience trauma. But then part of me thinks there shouldn't be need to separate people. If people are being treated holistically and as an individual, well then it's automatically going to be trauma-informed care for those that have experienced trauma.
Yeah.
And I think there's, again, it's using a label as trauma-informed care. They might be thinking it's a positive, but it's a label.
Yeah.
And it's also, for me, it comes with a lot of assumptions that they've whacked all trauma as one. So whether it's trauma as an adult or as a child, or whether it's abusive trauma, or whether it's a car crash or whatever, or somebody who's been to war, it's all classed as thing. And you're not all going to behave the same way.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite stereotypical, stereotyping people, and I think that can be really unhelpful in expecting people to behave in a certain way. So like giving people a list, treat them like this, this and this, because they'll react this, this and this. Well, they don't. Everybody reacts differently, and each trauma's differently, but people are different. So people experiencing the similar kind of trauma will react differently. I know some people who have experienced child sexual abuse, and they behave and live very differently to what I do.
Yeah.
It's like, just because we've been through abuse don't mean to say you're the same. It's like boiling water. If you put an egg in it, it'll go hard, but if you put a potato in it, it'll go soft, because we're all different.
Yeah.
And I think trauma-informed care is a bit going the opposite of where we need to go to. I think we need to be going to individuals and not assuming, and like I think I need it tattooed on my forehead, don't assume, just ask.
Is it that's more important to you?
Yeah.
It's really simple, really. Just ask the person.
Yeah, it's not rocket science. It's not this, oh, we'll have charters and we'll have policies and we'll have this, that and other. It's like, just be respectful and treat somebody as an individual, and all of them, not just think, oh, it affects the behaviour or it affects the, don't know, just one aspect. Understand that it affects every part of their being.
So it's like doing a recce, really, that you don't leave a stone left unturned, because it doesn't leave a stone left unturned in your health and development. From a childhood trauma, it gets into every single nook and cranny.
Yeah, and it's that what you've helped explain to me, that that we're born a blank slate, and it's your experiences and your interactions that shape you. But when you're a child and you've been in an abusive situation and you're growing up, that's when your brain's developing and you're understanding yourself, you're understanding the world, you're understanding your reactions with the world and the world reacting with you. Whereas if you've experienced trauma as an adult, you've got that solid foundation to fall back on. But if you've experienced abuse as a child, it's shaped everything, and it's not till therapy that I learn every single aspect of how I think, feel, behave, and how my body functions has been poisoned, influenced, shaped, whatever you want to call it, by what happened. Because I haven't got that solid foundation development to fall back on. So I'm sort of like learning how I've interpreted things because of what's happened to me. So it's not I've developed that way because of what's happened, not I've developed that way because that's me.
That's who you,
And for many, many years I thought that's just me. I don't like people, I'm odd, I'm rude, I'm nasty, I've got no feelings, because I've got an attachment disorder, for how I attach with people and relationships and stuff because of it. And therapy has made me understand those things, whereas when I came into it I expected it to solve my eating disorder and my addiction to exercise, and it doesn't solve problems, it just helps you understand them. And by understanding it I got a lot more problems than what I came in with. But I understand things more and understand why I react to things in a certain way and why I don't like certain situations, rather than just giving myself that label of, oh, you're weird, you're odd, you're rude, you don't like people, you're insensitive, you don't care, because it has shut down a lot of my emotions and stuff like that. So I didn't understand why, so I just gave myself that label, and everybody else did, that I was rude or was unfeeling. But now, even though those feelings haven't magically come back because I understand it now, I understand it more and I'm not as harsh on myself, I think. I still am harsh, but I'm not as harsh.
As you are.
Yeah, it's a scale. I'm moving up it, but I'm nowhere near
Yeah.
as self-care and all that kind of stuff. No, I'm still critical, but maybe not as.
But it's not your criticism, is it? It's when you think of the world and the stories that we have. Everybody has a story that they live by. It might not be true, but they make it true. We all make our stories true for us because we believe them. Sometimes we believe stories of, such as that we're not good enough, or, we believe those stories because we're programmed with them.
Yeah.
Like I've said before, if you don't get them at home, you will get them from school, because majority of things are programs that we're given. So everybody, if you don't get 10 out of 10, or these things might have been said as a goodwill gesture for the child to improve, but they don't. Nobody actually asks, what do you think you're actually saying to that child if you say they could do it, on your report, they need to be a little bit more confident, they need to be and it's like, who do you need to do all that for? You're doing all these things as a human doing
and
for
could
society.
do better is one, isn't it, that you see a lot.
Who could you do better for?
But nobody asked, did they? Nobody asked me.
Why are you, why haven't you got this, or why haven't you got that? But why do you need it in the first place? It's like we're run like machines instead of being a human being. We become a human doing something, and everything. When you think, well, who are we doing this for? We're doing it for a system. Are we going to use these things in the future? Maybe not. If you don't know 10 out of 10, you can always get a calculator and ask that instead. But it's just that, we're told that we need these things. So then, if you're told that, what you're going to tell your child when you have a child, you're going to tell it this. What do people do? They blame children a lot. I don't know why. I treat them both the same. I don't know why this one's like this and this one's like that. It's like, because there's a side of yourself that you're not seeing. We don't question. Children don't get things from nowhere. They get things from somewhere. Yeah. And so it's that. And so when you're talking about this label of being trauma informed, who's going to inform you then? And when the individual comes in, well, I've been informed, but you haven't been informed about me. Yeah. Because you don't know me.
And that's what I say about the assumptions, and like a checklist, you will be behaving a certain way. Because I know somebody asked me, what are the signs of somebody's got an eating disorder? And so I said, well, I could give you a list of signs, but that means that your view's blinkered. You're not looking at anything other than those signs, so you will miss a lot of people who don't fit that stereotype. Because you know, there's a stereotype that somebody might think, oh, they'll wear baggy clothes to cover their body and stuff like that. However, I know somebody with an eating disorder who is very underweight, but because she doesn't see it, she will wear leggings and a crop top because she doesn't see that there's anything wrong with a body, that kind of thing. So by giving lists and this is how you are being trauma informed, I think you can miss out, or you can actually cause further damage by your assumptions. And I must admit, they're more, I like that, I love my quotes, as you know. Is it Carl Jung, have I got it right? You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. Because what I find is, in my experience, those people who are just getting on with stuff are actually trauma informed more than those people who have got, we're doing this training on trauma informed, we've got this policy. I think people who just, from my experience with services, people who just get on with stuff and treat people as an individual actually are properly trauma informed. Like the example that I had a few examples of, like when I was waiting for surgery on my implant for my bladder, I saw the surgeon a few times leading up to it, and he'd always go, is there any questions about the surgery and stuff? And all I'd go is, I can keep my underwear on, can't I? I can keep my underwear on, because I was like really panicky that I'd have to take my pants off. And I don't do that. I don't like being exposed, and I don't even when I'm getting changed and stuff like that. And he'd just go, yes, you can. And I'd ask him every time, and he'd say, have you got any questions? Like, can I keep my underwear on? Are you sure I can? And be like, yes, you can. He didn't say, you've asked me that loads of times. He didn't say, no, we need a sterile environment. It would just give me the answer and the reassurance that I needed. And when I went in for surgery, he came round to see me in the morning, and again asked any questions, or there again, and about being exposed and stuff like that. So, and he said, is it all right if I share your concerns with the team who are going to be in theatre? So I said, yeah, because he wanted me to have a sedative as well, because I was a bit worked up and stuff. And because as well, the day that I went in, I hadn't been able to do any of my OCD routines. So all I was going, I haven't been for my walk this morning. I haven't been for a walk this morning. Can I keep my pants? And so he was like, right, can I explain it to him? And I'm like, yeah. And so when I went in, the anaesthetist was lovely. And it said, I know you're worried about that, you haven't done your walk this morning and stuff, and asking me about like how long do I normally walk for and stuff like that, and what my routine was. And when they were doing the epidural, he and the nurse in theatre made sure that I was covered up, and that there was only a little bit showing on my back, because I'm a bit obsessed with my back being covered and stuff. And so they just made sure that. And then when I was on the table, because I was laying face down, I was covered like with a blanket, because there were some delays in theatre, and nurse kept coming up to me going, I know you can't feel out, but let me reassure you, you are covered, because I couldn't see, because obviously I was face down. And he did that loads of times to reassure me that I was covered and that it were all right.
What was that like for you?
It calmed me down a lot. I were anxious about, like, even just having that little bit exposed, but him saying those things to me. And it were a bit of a shock, really. Somebody's listened to me, and somebody understands how really, really, really important that is to me. You know, not even just to do it, or even to say it once, but he came and said it all the time.
What's it like to look at that image of it feeling like that in a society for you, that it's special almost to be in a respectful and decent way. But the norm is that you've experienced is to not.
That's what I'm learning. It's like for all my life I've accepted how people treat me, and it's only now that I'm learning, oh, that wasn't really quite nice what they said, or like when that nurse said, oh, I pity your parents for having a daughter like you. You make me feel sick when I look at you. I went, yeah, so do I. Because I agreed with her that I did pity my mum and dad. And I did hate myself that
Sorry,
much.
Dan, I just want to. How old do you feel right now?
Now.
Yeah, I can hear.
A kid.
Yeah, I can hear her.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel my kid. Because I just accepted those things. I expected to be treated like that. I felt that I had to be grateful for when people were nice to me, or even grateful when people weren't nice to me but they'd acknowledge me. And it's only now, again, through understanding in therapy, it's like, no, that wasn't good, that I just let people say that to me, or that people thought it was acceptable to say that and do that and stuff. But yeah, it was quite a shock when somebody like listens to me. I'm still always shocked now if you like remember something that I said like a few months ago. It's like, oh, you remembered what I said?
Yeah.
Why are you remembering what I say? Why would you? You know, you've got more important things to do. That's
more important than you.
Yeah.
Why?
Because that's what I've always believed, that everybody else is better than I am and more important. And like when I see my psychiatrist, for years and years, I was like, why are you seeing me? Why are you seeing somebody who's just, doctors don't see somebody just because they're stupid and they're not nice. Or, and she'd try and help me to understand that it was an illness and get DSM out and go, how do you not meet that criteria? And I'm like, well, I might meet that criteria, but I'm still stupid. And her not writing me off and seeing it as a way that I've lived. I guess that's what trauma informed is.
What is stupid?
I always thought that I was stupid, that I was like, my even down to like my eating and my eating disorder, I didn't take it seriously. I didn't take it as a problem. It was just me being stupid with my eating, or me being thick, or me being not a nice person.
So what does those words mean to you then? If realistically, we made those words up. As I say to you, I always look to the one who made the apple, because we can't make an apple. I don't know a human being on this planet that could actually make an apple. In fact, everything that's been put on this planet has already been given to us. So what do you make of the word stupid? Because compared to that, we don't really know much.
No.
Do we? Because I don't know how to make an apple. So, and we made words up, they're just noises, but we understand what the noises mean. But we make sense of things that become quite paradox or quite fickle, such as, like I say, with murder. So murder is a good thing in a sense, when we say, it's okay to feed people and murder animals, that's okay. So if you say to somebody, do you believe in murder, and they'd say no, well, what did you have for your lunch? Or what clothes or shoes are you wearing? Or, in some sense we get put in prison for murder, or in other senses we get let off, and in other senses we'll get given awards for it.
Yeah.
So we're the ones that make these words up, and they mean something over here, but they mean something different over there. So they're quite fickle or paradox, aren't they? So
Yeah.
it's that way when you say these derogatory words, that even that word's been made up.
Mm.
So when you say that, what do they mean? Ultimately, is what, because how I'm understanding what you're saying is that if you're a bad person and if you're stupid and all the other negative things, does that justify you being treated the way that you've been treated?
I thought it did,
Right.
and I wholeheartedly believed that it wasn't. I was just saying, oh, I was stupid, I was ugly. I genuinely believed and still believe at some points, still believe those things.
Right.
I genuinely believed them and thought that was me, and thought that I didn't have any control over them, thought that I was born that way, and it isn't till therapies helped me understand that I wasn't. Again, these are interpretations of how I interacted with the world and how that the world interacted with me and my world around me. Said that I was naughty and not good enough compared to everybody else and had to work harder and wasn't nice and wasn't feeling. So I adopted that as that being me.
So this was based on a story that society made up, which can't be true, really. You know, we make up stories all the time. Everybody has a story that they make up about themselves or somebody else. They'll make a story up and they'll feel a kind of way about themselves or somebody else, just as you have, based on the story that's been made up. But if you think about, well, who's better than you, really?
We're all equal.
Exactly, we're all born as we should be born, just as an apple. It's made as it should be. If you saw, you know, two birds, would you say that one's better than that one because that one's stupid? It's like, no. But why do we do that with each other? Who gets the right to say who's this or who's that? Because society makes a story up and says you should be like this, this and this, and if you're not, you're stupid.
Yeah.
But society made the story up. Society did not make you. So how does that make sense to you then? I can't make a human being.
Yeah.
I was given the tools to have children as you were, but I wouldn't know where to start to make a human being using the external part of me.
Yeah.
Everything that we contain is inside of us. All our knowledge is contained inside of us already. So how can anybody external to us say that that's not good enough? How can anyone say that if everything's contained inside of us?
They can't, or they shouldn't, but for so long, and I was so fixed that I couldn't think any other way than that. I must have been a nightmare when I first started therapy because I wasn't even open to thinking any certain way. It was like, I know this, just stop my eating disorder. I know this about myself. I know I'm stupid. I know I'm thick. I know I'm not nice. I know I'm this. And I couldn't think of any other way. But over time, there are times when I think, oh, it's just me. It's just whatever. But I'm trying to take on board that understanding that you've taught me.
What makes you think that you were a nightmare?
Because I was just really fixed in my opinions and stuff like that, and really I didn't understand really what therapy was. I wanted it to do one certain thing, and I didn't like that it wasn't like that, so I was quite...
What did you want it to do?
I wanted it to just stop me having an eating disorder.
Right.
And just help me learn to accept who I was, because I didn't like who I was. So I didn't think it could change who I was, because I thought I was born bad and born horrible. So I just wanted it to helped me just accept it rather than hate the fact that I was like that. So I was very fixed in any kind of wondering or exploration at the beginning was sort of like not gonna happen, or if it did, it'd be like, right, still a load of rubbish, I'm still horrible, and I was very
Do you believe
fixed.
that now?
Sometimes I can be like that. The majority of the time I am reminding myself that yes, some of my behaviours have been not nice, or have been hurtful or selfish or even rude, but I can see where that behaviour's come from now, and I don't beat myself up for it. I used to cry that I was horrible, that I didn't like people, that I couldn't feel things, that I didn't get upset, and that I didn't know how to have affection for people and that kind of thing. I used to get upset with how I was, and I was quite aggressive and violent towards my dad, and I was upset with that, and I'd always try every day, right, you're going to be nice to him, because he just got my anger, and because I couldn't control that, I felt like it must be me. Whereas now, and I felt quite guilty and quite a bad person for being like that with him. For now I don't feel guilty. I don't psychologically beat myself up for it, because I understand why I was like that with him. Because I could get away with it with him. I could express myself. He didn't retaliate back. He never said a bad word to me. He never put a finger on me. You know, another parent could have just give you a smack, just could have told you off, or rejected you or something. He just accepted how I was with him. I don't feel guilty. I understand why I did that. So it wasn't nice. I still accept my behaviour wasn't nice towards him, but I understand why now, rather than just thinking it's me who is horrible.
I think as well in that is being able to have an outlet, but also understand that although you had somebody to lay it out on, Dad still wasn't asking the question why.
No.
He just, so there's a part of that, although it seemed good to have an outlet, it was the letting it out was a collusion.
Yeah,
well.
And I think that he didn't, I'm presuming, because he's not with us now, I'm presuming he wasn't doing it for that intention.
No.
But I can see in some ways it wasn't helpful, because my mum would be very, oh, tell her to stop it, give her a smack, or don't let her speak to you like that, you're too soft with her. And he would always say, I'd rather she do it to me than anybody else, and she can't help it. That fed into me, I can't help it, it must be me.
Yeah.
So that fed into me. It wasn't his intention, but it fed into mine. It's just me. There's nothing I can do about it, because I didn't understand why I was like it. It was like a switch. When I saw him and walked past him, I'd just kick him or hit him and shout at him. And he'd only just ask me, did I want a drink? And I'd go off on one or something like that. Yeah, so things have changed. I can now see that my behaviour was rude or not nice or whatever, because when you have that anorexic voice, it becomes above everything else. So there were times when there were family emergencies going off and stuff like that, and I was like, well, I should be at gym at this time, I should be burning my calories, and I should be doing this and I should be doing that. I put that, so I might have come across as unfeeling or unkind, but now I understand why I was like that.
Do you still, holding that in what you're saying is what you've learned in therapy ultimately is to give you a choice. Today you can have a good day or you can have a terrible day. It's based on your thinking.
Yeah.
So you can have what I say, the schizophrenic voice of listening to it telling you to do all these things, but it's not actually talking to you, it's recording. It's a recording of events. And if we, you know, if we listen, do the same thing every day, then the recording just records it.
Yeah.
It's like when you wake up on the morning, the recording will wake you and tell you what you did yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's in recognising that evidence for yourself, and to say it's just repeating what happened to
And
me yesterday.
The evidence the other week really made me understand that, because I was poorly with a virus, and so I couldn't get up out of bed. So I wasn't doing my routines, and a lot of my routines and my OCD behaviours are exercise based or movement based, so I'm burning calories and stuff. I wasn't well enough to even get out of bed. And before, when I've been unwell, I've done spin classes when I've been feeling rotten, but I was really just couldn't get out of bed for feeling like that. But the voice did not stop. Even though I didn't eat anything for 5 days, the voice was still there. Well, you're not burning any calories. You're not eating anything. Well, I wonder if you're burning calories, just lady. Oh no, you won't be burning calories. I wonder. The voice didn't stop, and after 5 days of being well, somebody, because I live on my own, somebody brought me some food, and had made me some food, and I hadn't eaten for 5 days, and the voice was still going, oh, I wonder how many calories in this. I wonder how many calories are in that. I don't want to. I'll only eat half of it, and that the voice, the recording, was still going regardless of. It didn't sort of like try and rationalise, well, I hadn't eaten for a week, so you're all right.
So it's not personal.
No, it's not personal. That really highlighted to me what you've been saying.
Yeah, that you're not the voice.
No.
These things aren't
And the voice isn't a person. I always felt that the voice was a voice in my head, or it was God.
It's all other people's.
Yeah, it is purely a recording.
It's a recording. So what happens is that you have a relationship to it. It's a bit like, say that you're nosy into a conversation, and two people are having a conversation, and you might go into it and say, oh, I don't agree with that, or I don't agree with that, and you get into it like a movie. I agree with that, or I don't agree with that. Or a bit like when somebody's running away and they always fall over in the movie, and you get right into it, you're like, run, and you're doing all that, and you're getting into it, and you've gotten so interested in it that the real you is over here, observing you, watching that part of the brain. It's not even who you are. You're saying, this is my eating disorder, this is mine. Well, it's not. It's something that's in the recording. It's a habit, an addiction that you've got to having an unhealthy relationship, and you just happen to use food to have it with. Doesn't matter what size you get. It doesn't matter whether you have a relationship with food where you get overweight, or a relationship with food. There's no target. When you meet this target weight, we're cracked. I'll leave you. It doesn't tell you that. It's just a relationship.
That's exactly it. Because when I was 4 stone, the voice was exactly saying the same as it is now. It's never happy.
Exactly.
And no matter how much I try and appease it, it's still never happy.
You see your relationship with it.
Yeah.
What you're saying is, I'm trying to make it happy, and I'm trying to appease it so it'll stop. It's like, it hasn't got a relationship with you. You believe that, and that's part of the egoic voice as well. It's just it's both sides are talking to itself. It's just a recording that's talking to itself. The observer over here, that's you, is actually saying nothing. You're watching it,
and it's how much I want to join in that conversation between them.
But it's not. It's because you're watching it with interest. It's like, stop staring at it, look away, decide. Every day you get up, you can decide, I can have a good story or a bad one. I get to choose. What am I interested in? When you've got this voice going on in your head, if somebody were to scream very loud outside, that voice would stop, because you'd move your interest. So imagine you're going for a pizza, you're absolutely starving, and you're going for a pizza, and the bomb goes off. Instantly, your appetite will leave, because something else will happen in the body, and you'll be so interested, adrenaline will start going, and you'll be interested in what's happening over there. your interest has just switched. And it's only then, when all that's over, it's like, where was I? Oh, I can go back to being hungry again. I'm starving now. And that's exactly what you're doing every day. When anybody has an addiction, they're interested in the story. What's my story? I do drugs. What's your story? I do alcohol. What I do cutting. What do you do? We pick a particular topic, yeah, and then we do it, because there'll be something around your environment around that, and that's when you become so interested in it.
It's just how I've changed. Sometimes I think I haven't moved on, and I'm like still as I was all them years ago, and it's just through like reflecting that and talking about how my understanding has changed, and nothing can change if it ain't your understanding. So going back to trauma-informed care, having a list of this is what you do, that ain't going to change how somebody treats you unless you understand the impact of your response on them. Does that make sense?
It does. I think what, part of it is for you to understand somebody else is by understanding yourself. What did I need? What did that do for me? By looking inside yourself of what you need. And if, when I say to people, you need to have your own back and be your own best friend. And so I would say, would you be friends with you? Yeah, of course I would. I'm a great person. I'm great with my friends. It's like, then, but you're not with yourself.
No.
You're not a very nice person. You're abusive to yourself.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm going to say. I've always argued with you, or with anybody, that when they say that if you've been abused, you become an abuser, and I've always argued, no, you don't. But I have, because I don't abuse anybody else, but I abuse myself and treat myself really bad.
On a daily basis, so the names you call yourself that are in your ego, you agree with them.
Yeah.
By the way that you treat yourself. So it might not be, you're not a sexual abuser. That's some people's belief that that's what you would go on to do. But actually you do abuse yourself. So it's like, are you your own best friend? No, I'm an abuser towards myself because that person taught me abuse. And so because they taught me abuse, I'm just like them. I do this, but I do it this way to myself. And if everybody then, in their experience, in their human experience, have experienced abuse or experience of being taught a certain way, such as, we just get on with it, pull your socks up, stop being a baby, stop being this, then what do you think you're going to offer somebody else? And you might not do it intentionally, but there'll be things that you do, no matter what job you have, no matter who you are, if that's what's being fed into your subconscious and it's being recorded, you're going to let it out on someone else. And so sometimes we might know something and have read it from a book. I know this now, so because I know this is how you treat people, like this and this. Well, your recording's going to slip in and say, on certain occasions, if you're not mindful, what your recording's going to say is, just pull your socks up. And that's what you experience, part of, when you had your hospital experience and you was hospitalised, and you said, I don't like to be touched, it was ignored, and you were touched anyway. And so that wasn't trauma informed. And even if you did inform the person, in that instance, they grabbed hold of your underwear or, pulled your top up. So in that instance, it's like, where did they get that from to do that? And something else was going on in their mind. We need to do this because we just need to do it.
Yeah.
So it's that.
And I don't think I should have to explain it to everybody in detail for them to understand it.
Yeah.
And I feel that I've got to justify people being nice to me now or taking my needs into consideration. I shouldn't have to say, please respect me, I've been through this.
You shouldn't have to say
It
that.
should be.
It's okay. It's very simple. Is it okay if I lift your top up?
Yeah.
It's really simple. You don't
Yeah.
have to go into loads of details. You know, you don't have to read a massive manual. You just ask a question. Is it okay?
Yeah.
You know.
I shouldn't have to see somebody who's trained in trauma-informed stuff, or I shouldn't have to give them a detail into my background before somebody'll be nice to me or ask me what I want and stuff. But that seems to be it at the minute.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think there needs to be such a thing, trauma-informed care.
Okay.
But yeah, that's just me.
Or it might not be just you.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you know, from what you've said, is that by just being yourself, by other people just being able to ask the question, but also part of what you've said is highlighted that in therapy it gives you a choice. You don't have to believe a word I'm saying, but you choose, and that's the point of it, is to say you can choose to be unhealthy if you like, and you can also choose not to be. I just want to be able to show you the option.
Yeah.
And then don't do what I say.
Yeah.
But, you know, do what makes you feel better.
Yeah, I didn't understand that, like I say, coming into therapy. I just expected therapists to be able to stop me having an eating disorder. And I thought that was the end of it, really.
Yeah.
And it's not. You can't stop or start things or change things. You just help me understand it.
For you, the only person that can stop you doing something ultimately is you, unless you physically restrain somebody. I can't stop you, but I can say you can live your life this way if you like. Or there's another one.
One of the things that did help me, and I don't understand why, and maybe you can like explain it to me, is like EMDR. Right. That really helped me with my flashbacks. I don't even like calling them flashbacks because to me they're just weird feelings or whatever.
Yeah.
But again, they've been given label and the flashbacks and stuff, but I didn't see them as that. I was just like, don't like that, or I can remember that, or I can remember this, and things had come into my head. How does that EMDR work?
Well, EMDR, I know you always get mixed up with the wording, so it's eye movement desensitization reprocessing.
I ain't going to remember that. This is the point where I think, acronyms are okay.
Okay, so how that is that we take information in on the right hemisphere, which is our emotional side, but also where our stories are in the nervous system if they play out or if you get triggered, and things like that. So back to a past memory. And over in the left hemisphere is like your filing cabinet. So if you've ever been in love before, which I know you haven't, but if you've ever been in love before, then what happens is that when the breakup happens and you know it's in your nervous system and you feel upset and you can't eat and you can't sleep and you've got all the symptoms of it. But once you fall out of love, it's like I don't even know what I saw in them. Yeah? And I can talk about it and it doesn't bother me at all. I can eat to my heart's content. That means that it's moved out of your nervous system, out of the right hemisphere, and moved over to the left, into your filing cabinet. So you can access the memories, but they're not the same. They don't feel the same as they used to do. And that's what EMDR does. It's what we do in REM sleep. Some people think it's hypnosis. It's not. It's just our natural ability to process information, as we do that when we go to sleep and the eyes flicker. So the eye movement is just to induce that and help you process the information, so it can give you a relief that it's no longer sat in your nervous system.
Yeah, and that's what it did. But I didn't understand why or how or quite thinking, I hadn't felt like that way before. Yeah, obviously it don't make you have amnesia and you don't lose your memories, but they just don't pop up
So
randomly or
yeah,
spontaneously.
So you kind of lose your pop-ups, don't you?
Yeah.
Really. But the reason why the brain keeps it is because, you know, every time we have something, we can learn a lesson from it. Everything really is about learning lessons. And so when you have an awful experience, you learn something from the awful experience. But instead of keeping what you've learned, we keep the whole thing. So what I say to people is that, you know, we're like animals. So say that we're round a watering hole. So we're in Africa and there's a big watering hole and all the animals around the watering hole. And you've got giraffes and deers and, you know, they're all there, and there's me and you there as well, and we're having a nice drink and a chat with each other, and all of a sudden a tiger comes along, and so we go into the fight, flight, freeze, and then the other one is accept. So, you know, some will run to try and outrun it. Some will just be, you know, like us in freeze, because we're not going to, you know, some people might run, but we're not going to outrun it. It can run faster than us. And so then we might just accept our fate. It's gonna come, it's gonna kill me, and that's that. But instead, what the tiger does is it comes, it's already eaten, it's not really interested, it's tired, and it goes away. All animals then return back, as far as we know, to their equilibrium. They go back to chatting and drinking the water, but we don't. We stay in the frozen state. Well, I best check. I best keep doing a recce and checking to make sure it's not there. It's like it's gone. But I can't believe that. I need to keep it for safekeeping. So when people have anxiety, often they don't want to get rid of it because, well, I need it. It helps me work. It helps me do my essays better. It helps me do this. It gets me. Without it, I won't. I'll just stay still. And it's like, how do you know?
Is that why I'm hyper-vigilant about everything?
Yeah.
And super aware of everything and on alert all the time?
That's it, because you've already suffered the wrath of the tiger, which is the abuse, and you've believed ever since it's going to come back, and it's not interested in you. It was interested in your child, but it's not interested in you as an adult. But you've decided to take it everywhere with you, and you're hyper vigilant, as if it's still there. You're still, you know, some people will say, you know, every time someone comes in to therapy, it's like, what's happened? And they might have had something that's happened now, or they might say, well, this thing happened to me 40 years ago, and I'm still reliving it every single day. So it's like Groundhog Day. So you're not living today, you're living every single day based on, well, this happened to me as a kid, so I can't, or somebody told me that. So it's a bit like, you know, not a bit like, but a lot like the recording, because it records things. So it's like, what did your ancestors get recorded on? They do Sunday lunch. Oh, okay, and they passed it on to you, did they? Yeah. And so you do Sunday lunch. Yeah. So you have to have this lunch on every Sunday day. Yeah, that's what we did. And that's what we do. So it's like we just live Groundhog Day, but we don't live our Groundhog Day. We live somebody else's. And we don't even know where Sunday lunch started from sometimes. So it's like, what are you going to dress your child in? Pink, if it's a girl, and blue if it's a boy. Who invented that? I don't know. So somebody else that you don't know, you're going to listen to, that told you this is what you're going to dress your child in. Yeah, and you're going to do it. Yeah, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
We're like sheeple. We copy each other. I mean, I know it's a little bit different now as we've evolved. Not everybody does that, but that's what we become. Instead of looking inside to say, what would I like to do?
And I ain't got a clue because I don't know who that person is, because I've listened to that recording for so long.
Yeah, of what everybody else has told you to do instead of being.
And I've been too busy doing those things.
Yeah, so
been too busy doing what that recording's been telling me, and had time for anything else.
And we don't get the memo, do we, of when we get older we carry these invisible rules of I must, I should, I've got to, I have to. So lots of people, I've got to go home and get the tea on, and it's like, what's going to happen when you get proper, not done, get proper done if you don't go home and get the tea on. So what do you have to do? And like you have, I must, I should, I have to, I've got to, I must do these routines. And it's like, what's going to happen if you don't? What's the worst? As an adult, you can't ever get done unless you break the law. And those that don't believe in that are in prison if they have broke the law. But it's that we agree. It's only by our agreement that we lose our freedom, because we agree with what everyone else says. So our freedom gets taken. You know, when we're children, don't cross the road. Don't do that. Don't do that. And it is said for safety. You know, there's a reason for it. But primarily from then, our lives are a recording of when we were young. So we agree then when we get older. We agree that an adult can tell us off when they can't really. Because we're an adult as well. So if you say
I don't feel an adult. I think that's one of the things that I don't know if it'll just change on its own or whether I work on it. I don't know. But the majority of the time, I still feel like that little kid.
Yeah.
And even when I'm around adults and my peers, I still feel that little kid. Yeah.
And quite often when we're children, we feel that we're the big. We feel, you know, I'm a big girl,
But is that because you've said, like, I'm frozen in it? I've frozen certain things about my development. I've, like, frozen and I'm still at that watering hole.
Yeah.
Waiting for Tiger to come
back.
That's
as an adult, but as a child, we quite often don't realise the size of the adult to the size of us until as an adult, you know, it's like saying to you, go and have a look at a 5-year-old child or younger, and so you can see, you know, what happened to you and the size that you were. And it's only by that we can, right, so because you blame yourself.
Yeah.